I wanted to work in the cotton mill and knew I was going to go in the military. So my best friend Max the Clipper, he was a year older than me, and he was gonna he knew had his draft notice and was going to go in the military. So we got together and talked and decided I figured I might as well go on and go in. So I joined the Air Force in 1966, and me and him went in on the buddy system. The funny thing about it was that I met my wife in '64, and she lived at Langley, right outside of Langley Air Force Base up there at Buck Road Beach. And I used to drive back and forth every weekend to see her when I was in school. And then I got out of school, joined the Air Force, and after I got out of basic training, they sent me to Langley, and she moved to Roanoke Rapids. So then I had to drive back from Langley to Roanoke Rapids to see her. Just we switched places, but I got stationed at Langley, and I remember one of the things about being in the military was I remember in I believe it was 67 or 68 that the Pueblo was captured. They captured the Pueblo in Korea, and I was, at the time I was saying, well, I think they ought to go on over there and get them guys back and do all that stuff. But then I went to work on Monday, and they told me the next morning I was going to be leaving for Korea. And so I kind of changed my attitude a little bit. And I kind of wanted them to negotiate a little bit because I was going to be right over there in the middle of it. So anyway, I went over there and stayed for, supposed to have been 90 days. It ended up being 6 months. And I came back. I was here a few months. I got orders for Vietnam. And I hadn't been back to the States long enough, so they canceled those. And then got orders for Thailand in '69, Utapao, Thailand, and my wife was pregnant when I left, so I went to Thailand. And at first, my main job over there was refueling aircraft, which was mainly the B-52s that were bombing Vietnam, and I stayed over there until December of '69. I came home. My daughter was about 3 months old when I got home, so I hadn't seen her. She was all this first in our marriage all happened while I was overseas. But I got discharged in '69, and right now I'm on 30% disability from the military because of Agent Orange. I have a piece of a B-52 back there, a little small piece, and I was surprised how heavy it was, but it was a little small piece of a B-52 that exploded on the runway, and it blew all to pieces, and there was a couple of guys killed in the helicopter. That was a rescue copter. But yeah, it was a B-52. I don't guess it's even classified information. I wouldn't think, but the B-52s over there, they flew what they call 2 ball games a day, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. And what it was, it was 9 B-52s would take off. They would take off fully loaded. They had, like I say, the B-52s had wheels out on the wings. They had so much weight on them with the bombs and all. And if you ever seen one take off, it was like, it was from a distance, it looked, all you could see was a black tail, looked like a shark's tail going across the base. But when they got to the end of the runway, it was almost like they were just nipping the water as they went out across the ocean, because it just so loaded it took them a long time to get up in the air. And I think this one B-52 had a problem when they were getting ready to take off. And I think they had a fire. And anyway, at that time I was in my barracks. I worked third shift. I was in my barracks asleep, and I heard a big rumble and all, and I thought it was thunder. And later on, they came into the barracks checking names to make sure, checking everybody to make sure that everybody was accounted for. And found out later that the B-52 had caught fire on the runway. A couple of bombs had exploded on the plane, and a rescue copter was hovering over the B-52 when some of the bombs exploded, and it killed a couple of people that were in the rescue copter. But that was, if you got close to the base the next few days, every once in a while you'd see a little piece of that plane laying somewhere on the runway or somewhere out there. And that's why I picked up a little piece and kept it as a souvenir. I always tell them about pulling guard duty on the edge of the base there, and they brought us rations out there, and I had an apple in there. It was a little bit soft. I took a couple of bites off of it, and I rolled it out across the road, and some big old rat was running. He caught it before it ever even got to the other side of the road. That was one thing that shocked me. But no, I don't know of any real. I just, I'm proud or glad of the experience of getting to go somewhere like that, to be able to go overseas and to be able to fly on airplanes. I flew on C-130s, I flew on C-141s. I met a lot of good people while I was in there. I don't have any contact with any of them at this time. But while I was over there, I think we walked on the moon while I was over there. I think Martin Luther King was killed when I was overseas, and Robert Kennedy was killed when I was overseas. So, I mean, a lot of things happen over there that I didn't experience like they did in the States. Yeah, I don't know what, think of something. Right, yeah, I was stationed in Utapau the whole time, and the thing about it was you step off that plane. I mean, you hear about these places, but until you go to these places, you step off the plane, you can tell, you can smell. There's just a different smell about the place that you have to get used to, and you have to get used to not being at home. It's not like it is now. Right now, you can get on the telephone and call and do all this stuff. The 18 months that I spent overseas, I never made a phone call back home or anything, so it was just a complete blackout except for letters. That's about all we got was letters. We didn't have any kind of video contact or anything, or telephone contact. But while I was in, I got to refuel the Thunderbirds. I was on standby at the base to refuel President Johnson's plane when he landed at Langley. I got to see a lot of people. I saw Sebastian Cabot, Herman, the guy from Herman and the Hermits. I saw him when I was overseas. But the USO over there was really a big deal. I really spent a lot of time at the USO. It was really life-saving over there when you had no contact with your families and all. Oh, the USO was great. If you didn't, one of those people that didn't go off base and all, and you stuck on base, then that was really the only place to go. We would go to the USO. I learned how to play pinochle, and I just couldn't hardly wait to have a day off and go over there and play pinochle. They made the best peanut butter and jelly sandwiches I've ever eaten. But they always had little events and stuff going on, and like I say, I spent so much time there. It was really a lifesaver, and really that's what it was all about, was doing your time. You worked, you done your time, and what you were trying to do was get that year passed by as fast as you could. So if you're out at the USO having a good time, it'll make that day go by pretty fast. So that's one reason it helped you be able to put up with being over there for 12 months without any communication. I didn't like going off of base too much, because when you got outside of base, you had to get on these little buses. They called them a bot bus, because their money over there, I think, was like a bot, and a bot was what you had to pay to ride at buses, so they call them bot buses. But they've had a couple of guys get on them buses, and then guys drive them down the road and stop, and they get robbed and stuff like that. So I got kind of scared about getting on them things, because I definitely wouldn't go off base unless I was going with another guy or something. I wouldn't go by myself, because even though you were over there doing what you were doing, those people really didn't like you. They really didn't like the Americans. I mean, the Americans were helping them, but Yeah, I think they felt like the Americans were downgrading them, you know, their way of life and stuff, and I thought all Americans were rich. You know, they thought every American was rich. Of course, they probably were to their way of living, but I don't know. You could just get that feeling that they were after, they wanted your money, and that's about all they wanted from you. They didn't want to be your friend and all that stuff. It was coming back from Korea and coming back from Thailand. Oh, it was like, it was a high just like you just wouldn't believe. I mean, like I say, I had not seen anybody or talked to anybody, just through letters when I went to Korea and all. When I came back from Korea, I came back on a 141. I landed in Goldsboro, Seymour Johnson. Then I caught a bus from Goldsboro to Rocky Mount. Then I caught another bus from Rocky Mount to Roanoke Rapids. And then as I got out off in Roanoke Rapids, I saw this old guy I knew that used to know Jesse Sewell that drove a taxi cab. And so he picked me up, and I actually went about a block away from my home to my aunt and uncle's house, and took a shower, changed clothes, and got cleaned up, and then walked down the street, which I'd walked many times before as a kid. But I walked down that street in my military uniform and walked home, and I knocked on the door, and I heard my mama hollering, and then I heard my wife hollering. And I mean, it was just such a feeling. You just couldn't wait to enjoy all the stuff that people just take for granted in the United States. I mean, the food, the freedom to go into the show, to driving your own car, and you know, just being around people that you could understand what they were saying and knew they cared about you. I mean, it was in the same way for Thailand. Of course, when I come back from Thailand, of course, when I come back from Thailand, my wife, she was sick in the hospital, and so I went to see her first. Then after I saw her, I went to my mother-in-law's house to see my daughter, which was the first time I had ever seen her. I'd seen pictures of her, but I'd never seen her before. And she's a nurse now on the 4th floor in the hospital, and she just had some operation stuff. She's lost about 85 pounds, so she's back to her looking like a young teenager again almost. But and then I had a son. I had a son born about 3 years later, and he got killed in a car wreck over here at Becker Farms in September the 25th, 1994. He was